Yep. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Did everybody have a chance to read the minutes?
Yes.
Did you have some concerns? Or?
On page number 2, new business for the board, I think we went way into too many details on the nomination, lack of second. Does the minutes have to follow exactly what the film shows?
No, they don't usually. It needs to record that there was every time there's a motion made, who seconds it, if anybody, and what the vote is. The discussion, that part is pretty optional, and you have a lot of discretion about what to include.
Okay, then another one on the after we just said who was going to serve on what boards. It states Commissioner Pohl mentioned he wanted it noted that the extra day was given due to the required increments of how the calendar days fell, and that next year could be back to 11. I wish that would say would be back to 11.
Okay.
That's my opinion. If you have any different, if you think would sound better.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as amended by the comments of Commissioner Pohl.
Okay. I'll second that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 3-0. Stupid.
On another note, when we have minutes from the city county, does the county have to approve them as well? Because I found some corrections in here.
Yeah, there are minutes of your meeting as well, so your minutes don't have to agree with theirs. But
Okay, on the very number 1, I don't know if you got a copy, it says Economic Development. Commissioner Pohl asked if we wanted to join Mark Mid-America Regional Council. He was not in favor of joining Mark because they let us down, and he wondered if Mark was the one to go with. That should have been MoCan. I stated MoCan because Mark, we've had no dealings with that.
That's on the first page.
It's right here, Economic Development, bullet point number 1.
Yeah, that's right.
And do you think that's adequate down there with about the resolution and that?
It's not complete.
That's what I felt.
I would say that those on number 3, joint communications and solid waste, C, the 1% sales tax discussion and interlocal agreement. I would say that they're incorrect, but I'm saying it's not complete, according to.
We don't have an interlocal agreement.
Well, that was the. Yeah, it's not an interlocal agreement with the city, correct? Because that's where I had pointed out that the city is operating under a resolution. The county and the third-class cities had interlocal agreements, and the city used to have an interlocal agreement. Matter of fact, I think Effingham changed theirs to a resolution also to match the city of Atchison. So that's how that part of it goes. I was just reading under what topic that was.
And then on the second page, I think this is incorrect. K.S.A. membership hasn't been paid. Internet City Manager Becky Berger said she had sent the invoice to Jamie at the county, It is $7,500. Commissioner Knoll said that they have not seen the bill. We paid that.
Yeah, well, that's since the meeting.
Since the meeting. Since the city county.
Okay, that could be true. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure that, because I'm sure I had not seen the bill as of that time.
I remember.
That was
paying
correct
it.
as of that day.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we have. It has been paid since then.
I
Yes.
remember seeing it. That's all I had.
That brings up a good point. Maybe in the future we need to see our minutes for these and go over them and approve them at the time, kind of like we do our regular ones. So we should have 2 sets of minutes that we do.
Or should we get 1 set of minutes that match?
And approved by both city and county when it's a joint city-county meeting.
And I think to go back to the city and say, hold it, we don't think there's all these are a true reflection. And maybe you get the recording and listen to yourself. I think the discussion of the 1 cent sales tax said that Eric Dole, our chairman, would get together with the city manager and form a committee to look at that. And here, it doesn't say
At the
that.
first year, Corn Committee, and I took it as you were co-leaders on this, and that's kind of went by the wayside.
That's why we're curious to see what the recording would say.
So how should we proceed? Should we, Pat, is there a way, should we have
I think you just adopt your own minutes, and you could send it back to them with an explanation, but you can't force them to change it if they don't want to change theirs. They could be conflicting, but you'd at least have down your
Our recollection of how the meeting went.
and kind of if you don't correct it, it will be what they have down will be what happened.
Yeah, there might be a point when there's a key issue that it's not quite right that can come back.
Michelle, did you say you also had notes, but you didn't develop them because
I did not type
you
them up
relied on the
because-
city?
Right.
Okay.
So maybe Michelle needs to take another look at it?
I can do
back
that.
She can do she with her own notes and the audio, and then come up with
Right.
your.
I'm going to email Deb to see if they still have
So what
the
you're
recording.
saying is just to prove how we recommended the city or the city-county meeting went, and whatever they have voted on, they voted on.
And that's what Michelle will come up with a
Okay,
set for
now
next
which
week.
one is people going to go to and say, well, which one's right?
Well, I have no idea what the public will do, but if they're
Should we talk to the city and say,
You should
there
notify
is some conflicts? Or,
you should notify them of that. But you should have your version.
Approved. And then send it
well,
to-
I know for a fact I wasn't talking about Markle. That was about Mocan.
well, that could be just.
Type of error.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's probably just what that is. The other
It's just
maybe lack from an exclusion, lack of information. Okay, we'll deal with that then next week.
No, I'd say exclude. It's too much.
Okay. Commissioner comments and committee reports.
I attended the EDAC group, it's the Economic Development Advisory Group, last week. They kind of covered some of the things that have already happened that we're aware of. One of the big things they discussed a lot was the Armstrong property because there's no infrastructure, no roads, no sewer. And the question mark is kind of like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And they really didn't come to a conclusion, but the infrastructure would be very expensive to install. Talked a little bit about the internet at the industrial park, and the city and the county are going to do their own resolutions on that. Northwest Pipe, of course, we know it went for sale. I guess Bill reported on that last week. It sounds like they're already starting to hire. Things are moving along pretty quickly. So the Star Bond project passed. They're starting to work on some of those projects, including the museum, talking about an architect for the farmers market. They talked about an airport business park as being part of, they do a new runway. It sounded like they were doing a new runway to me, but talked about having an airport business park there at the airport. Not much discussion on that, maybe more of an idea. E-community, which I think is something that we need to have a lot of people within our county aware of. They have a program through Department of Commerce where they can loan you money at a very low interest rate and maybe deferred payments. It goes in accord with a bank loan. There's been 5 of them done in the community. I think the guitar store, the sunflower coffee shop, I think the new Napa store, we're all beneficiaries of that program. But I think farmer or community member outside of the city of Atchison who has an entrepreneurship idea should qualify for this. And it looks like they may have as much as, the last group was a maximum of $40,000. Sounds like it's going to raise to $75,000. So how we get the word out about that?
Is this a loan or a grant?
It's a loan, but I will tell you it's a low interest loan, and the terms are very favorable. And most of the people who participated in this probably heard about it because they were close to this program. I challenged them to how we get more and more people knowing about it. But if you hear about somebody trying to start a business out and about, let's see if they're qualified for it. But bank financing is part of it, so you have to let people qualify for bank financing. They talked about the MOCAN and K.S.A memberships, and along with Mark, I brought him up to date on what the situation was at MOCAN. Reported that Pat was going to the meeting in January. It was going to kind of explain to him where we were coming from. They talked a little bit about the structure of the meeting, and I guess their meetings have just kind of been when they call them. Sounds like I guess what they decided to do was to have a meeting every other month in the odd number of months, so they have a more frequent meeting. I would tell you that they talked a little bit about the county government appointing some members. I think there was a little bit of blowback initially on that, and I brought up the fact that it had come up at the city county meeting, and that the city commission talked about maybe giving us some of the appointments in July. And our attitude would be to appoint people within our area, our county area, that have the skill sets to be an adequate problem on there. We're not just trying to get people with an agenda or that type of thing. I think they felt more comfortable with that. So overall, it was a good meeting. I'm going to continue to attend as a representative of the county. If for some reason I can't attend, I would let Bill or Eric join the meeting. So that's kind of the report there. Does anybody have any questions? I can try to answer.
There was some talk about forming a higher up board. What do they call it?
The executive board?
Executive board.
That was not discussed.
That wasn't discussed.
Yeah.
They was talking like one city commissioner, one county commissioner, and the city manager.
Huh.
And the executive board.
They didn't discuss that at all in this particular meeting.
Okay.
And they were trying to keep it down to an hour, so as you see, there's a lot of information.
Mm-hmm.
And they did get it done in an hour, so it went pretty quick.
Sounds good. Anything further?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. My meeting last Thursday was at NEKES was postponed due to slip road, so this Thursday I'm having NEKES in the morning and NECAP in that evening at Hiawatha. I didn't have any other meetings. I did have watching the city commission, when I was watching their meeting, they announced that they were going to the local government day, and I believe they mentioned that you were going with them. Mm-hmm. I also have signed up for it. I didn't know, we haven't talked about it amongst ourselves, but I had already registered before that I knew.
I assume you could go with them.
I figured on going myself. I didn't know. Last year I was the only representative from the city or county there. I hadn't heard anything when it came available on the internet. I had registered, and then I saw that you were going on. Of course, we won't be exchanging anything there. I mean, right. I don't think there's any problem with us being there at the same time.
No, we're not going to be discussing business or anything.
I just asked Pat. He said he didn't see any problem.
So, and if I don't know, we couldn't all go together for that matter. The only thing is they were definitely going to want to be back because they have babysitting and stuff. They want to be back by 5:30.
I'm sure I'll just go myself.
Okay.
That wasn't the angle. I was just wanting to kind of inform. And
I think there's a meeting set with Representative Epley. I think at 10:30. So you need to get with Becky and see.
Well, that's the whole thing. Don't start till 4 in the afternoon.
Well, see, I think we were planning to be back by 5:30. So we were going to go see. There evidently something in the afternoon.
Well, that's what it was going to. The way I took it, as I remember the itinerary was that there was speakers were starting at 4, and then they had kind of a round table, and then after that you went for sit downs with your congressman and that afterwards, which that's the way I done it last year. I was talking with
Well, maybe that's a better way to do it.
So I don't know whether maybe they have a special sit down already planned, and that's fine.
I think they do, but I think you could be included in that.
Okay,
But it's in the morning. I mean,
well, see, I wouldn't be able to go all day. That's kind of the problem. It's one thing I was planning on going was because it was late enough in the day I could get things done and get down there.
well, it may be a situation where if I feel like I could stay and maybe right back with you.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. Something else I was had kind of emailed both Jamie and Michelle about, but then it's kind of different than what I thought, and that was Project Atchison at their next meeting on February 7th at 7:30. They're kind of having I think they called it a community happy hour. Basically, they're trying to get different agencies there and kind of point out a lot of these agencies in the county are overlapping on a lot of their messages. They're spending duplicate maybe on a lot of this stuff when they're doing the same thing, wanting to work together better. Maybe could share resources, things like that. So we're all invited. I plan on going, and I wanted to just bring it up.
Okay. I'm going to be out of town.
Okay.
But I think they want as many county commissioners there as possible. But we got to remember too that these agencies, in their own funny way, are like competitors.
Yes. That was one thing
So,
that was brought up.
All of them changing their charters to match, which would be a good idea if they could. But
That was brought up at one of the last Project Atchison meetings, and that was, why do they compete? They want the same thing. Well, when you're a public funded entity, unless you have that, you don't want to lose your funding. If somebody else is taking your territory, then what's your mission? So,
right.
But maybe if they could work together, maybe they could extend it, not change their funding so much, but don't overlap.
Yeah, I understand the community needs as well as they can.
Yes, it wasn't a thing to get necessarily rid of it, but why couldn't they make the most bang for the buck if they weren't overlapping? So that's their.
It's a good chance to learn.
Yeah, it's a good program. Okay, Corey, want to come up?
Good afternoon. I've got the December 2017 monthly report and also the 2017 yearly report. How many people need a copy?
I think we all have one. Yes.
If you have an extra one.
Oh,
It's
there's
attached
two.
on
Here's
the
one.
agenda as well.
They were stuck together here.
One was yearly, one was monthly.
There's two.
There is
Here's yearly.
This is monthly.
This is yearly. Oh,
It's on the agenda. They're both
What's in
attached on the agenda.
I have plenty.
okay. Well, we're going to start monthly.
If that's where you'd like to
Yes,
start.
it is.
Okay.
Kind of follows the same pattern. Again, right in line where I want to be. Sometimes still runs a little long. I'm going to reevaluate going into this year whether maybe I set that goal a little too lofty. Sometimes we do want them to be under 20, but the circumstances of people's entrapment, the houses they're in, and everything else just limits us. I don't want to rush anything and injure people trying to meet an arbitrary number, so I'm gonna reevaluate what keeps that time over that 20-minute goal. So, but again, we're just nominally over it, and you got to factor in some of these are standbys that may be 5-6 hours long in the case of a house fire or something of that nature that we don't have any control over. So, but other than that, following a nice pattern, the places we can get better easily, we are getting better. So, pretty satisfied with that.
What are the triage colors mean?
Triage code is based on the initial acuity of the patient's condition upon arrival. So it's essentially short of giving you the whole dissertation. It comes down to the time that they can be without definitive care at a hospital without further injury or death. So green means they've got a 24-hour period. Yellow means 1 hour. Red means immediate. And code blue means cardiac arrest. Code black means deceased upon arrival. So it's just a way for us to sort out who comes first. It also gives the hospital an opportunity to prepare for what's coming in, simply based on a quick radio triage. They can bring in extra resources and know what's coming in before we ever get them a report.
Okay. Have any questions on the monthly? No. Just one year.
Yearly? Yeah, nothing really surprising in it. We've seen the yearly trends as we've done them by month, but it does give you a totality of what we've done through the course of 11 months of operation. So,
Corey, when they say scene time 911 or transfer time 911, when does the clock start?
the clock starts when they radio arrived on scene. When they radio dispatch and said this unit has arrived on scene, that scene time starts.
Is that almost instantaneously from the call coming in, or?
No, when we, let's start clear back at shoot time. These times are initiated based on when dispatch notifies us, for the most part. If somebody walks into the station, we notify dispatch, and then the time starts. So as soon as we're dispatched, that starts our shoot time.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we radio en route, that shuts off shoot time and starts response time. As soon as we radio on scene, response time shuts off, scene time starts. As soon as the crew radios en route to the facility, or for whatever reason, if it's a refusal, a standby, and we don't transport, then we radio clear and available. So each one of those times is initiated through a radio response to dispatch, and they keep all those times for us independently. So
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Yeah, because I know was questioned about a call a long time ago, and they were questioned and said it took way too long. Well, when I got the radio log of when they happened, when everything was initiated, and they said, well, it couldn't
have cameras working.
Yeah, I actually looking.
Blue light's not on.
Move, nothing.
I don't
Oh,
see
it's froze up.
I don't see no wheels spinning.
I don't know what to do about it. Shut it back off and start it again.
Just by mistake, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Okay, it's working. Oh,
Maybe
maybe
should
it
be
got the
going.
audio.
Hmm?
Maybe it'll at least would have captured the audio.
Okay.
Say something.
Yeah, we just realized that the audio or the camera wasn't on. We were froze on the screen, so we will proceed from this moment on. Possibly the audio took because it was theoretically capturing that portion of it. So anyway, we'll continue with this. I was talking about the individual that was questioning times, and so when I got the radio or the dispatch log, I had to explain that isn't generated by our EMS service. That's a totally different entity. So you have a record of when this actually happened in real time. It's a lot different when you're waiting on an ambulance. It seems like it's 20 minutes and it was 4. So you do have that extra, and that's all recorded and kept in,
independent.
Yeah, independent.
Through joint communications through Kim's department. Yeah, that is all logged. These aren't arbitrary times we're keeping ourselves. That's done completely in conjunction with dispatch.
I think you also got to realize with the weather we've had in the last month, and we've got some pretty good hills up there, some of the residents.
Mm-hmm. And we actually pre-plan for that. I send out a preparatory email to remind the crews, hey, pre-plan your routes in, watch your snow routes, don't go up hills. We have other resources to access patients besides sliding a $200,000 ambulance down a hill into something. So crews are all prepared for that. We put cold weather gear on the trucks. There's ice melt on the trucks. So we take into account that, but it does slow us down.
Sure it does.
And it should slow us down. We should take more time and be more careful when these conditions present themselves. So hopefully crews are well enough trained and prepared for that eventuality. And we've done well so far. So.
I haven't heard any negative, but I've also not heard any positive.
the positives in this business are sometimes few and far between. When people come in and say thank you, I definitely make sure the crews go out and meet with them and hear that, because it is rare.
I have heard a lot of positives. One of the big things was the uniforms and just the overall presentation of the service. It's just been very positive.
And something else that I didn't necessarily reflect into this report, and I thought maybe the commission would like to know, our continuing education program. I added up on Friday. We did 197 clock hours of continuing education for our people and for our emergency partners, the fire department, the rescue squad, and even other regional resources have come in. We train with LifeNet, we train with Nortonville Fire. So I'm really proud of the fact that we put nearly 200 hours on the books of continuing education. So hopefully our people are well trained, and going into the new year, we're going to expand that continuing education into more mission-focused type things, specialty care type events. So we're even better and more diversified than we were this year.
Will we see the financials in about, what, July?
I'm hoping you see some solid financials 3 to 4 months into this year over what we did last year. Okay. And we're caught up to billing to the beginning of November, which is a little behind where I want to be, but not bad. And we're starting to see bills roll in from August and September. So it's going to take some time to really know what we did for 2017. But at the moment, we're just shy of $400,000 in cash taken in. So at the pace we're going, we're still north of that 700,000 mark.
I think that was the goal, wasn't it,
731,000 is the goal I last presented to you. And the pace we're on, we should see that.
Where was I going with that? I lost my train of thought.
Getting a lot of aging debts.
Mr. Waring has taken over all those aging ones and has been working on it. I expect a report from him very soon. He said middle of the month, I believe. I'll have to check my emails on that. And I think it's been very successful in closing a lot of these debts. So as soon as I've got a report, you'll have a report.
Kind of plan in place.
Yep. And now the protocol is all laid out when they go to Mr. Henderson, when they go to Mr. Waring. So we should never see that huge lump sum of aging debt ever again. It'll be a much more streamlined process to get them through and get them taken care of. So.
What do you see this next year? Do you see anything developing that we hadn't anticipated, or is that pretty much?
No, I don't see any huge hurdles. Obviously, in this line of work, who knows what comes tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I see some equipment replacement, some things we're definitely going to need. We've budgeted for that. We're prepared for that. We're looking at keeping our heart monitors up to date instead of waiting till they're 30 years old. We're going to need some cots. Our cots are aged, so we're looking at replacing one of those this year. And then there's some other more minor equipment that I've budgeted for that is just outdated or wore out. We have some IO drills that need replaced, which are interosseous bone guns, some stair chairs.
What is that?
Interosseous bone gun. In lieu of an IV, sometimes it's quicker and more prudent to actually drill a hole in somebody's bone and administer medications and fluids that way. It sounds really, really terrible, but it is a very effective, very fast, and less painful than you might think. It certainly carries a certain amount of pain, but in instances where people are unresponsive, they don't know it anyway.
I don't mean to
I was going to say, do we have a form that they sign off on?
No, it's signed off by our medical director. So no, it's pre-approved by a physician. We've been doing it for 10 or 11 years now.
I've never heard of that, so that's my first thing.
It's very rare that it happens.
No, actually more often than you might think. In instances where we're unable to get an IV rapidly, that's our secondary device, and in instances such as cardiac arrest or extreme trauma, we go straight to that device because it is so much faster and so much more secure. And it's becoming the industry standard.
Well, I know that when they take my blood, they have a heck of a time finding a day.
Yeah, we're not going to do that to you for taking blood, though. That's a little...
No, I understand that, but I assume in a trauma situation it would be the same situation.
Knock on wood, if you were ever in a situation where we couldn't get an IV and we had to administer fluids and emergency medications, it's nearly instant. Mm-hmm. So, and it's very secure in those scenarios where we're extricating somebody out of a vehicle. IVs get pulled out. And that device, unfortunately, the manufacturers like to keep it close to the vest, so the batteries aren't replaceable. So we end up having to replace them every so many years. So that's one item that's up. Stair chairs are another item that we didn't have enough starting with, and they've become aged. So we're looking at those as well. So equipment replacement this year is my big hurdle.
Okay. I think things look good.
I hope so.
Thanks, Paul.
Is that it? Any questions for us?
No, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good afternoon.
You too.
18 rebuild,
19 is I don't have any
Anything
slated for this year.
19 is a move.
Yeah, and we're going to explore our grant options on that too before we go to look at how much it's going to cost.
Park car still parred.
It's in rough condition. I'm looking at used options at the moment. We've had a transmission problem at the moment. But we're getting by. So I would imagine I'd come to you at some point on a potential used option.
Okay. Thank you. Are we just anticipating, or
Yeah, I was just here because the public comment section is the very first thing, right?
yeah? But we do
I've
have.
seen.
Have you set another one for later? We talked about having a public comment at the end too. Is that
No, we
listed?
haven't. When do you want it?
Just before we adjourn, we
Okay.
talked about having a second one.
Okay.
So in the future, that way, if somebody comes through the meeting, that they have them an opportunity.
Okay.
We don't have
So
public comment in on the
My
agenda.
suspicion
it
was
was
it was
approved again, wasn't it?
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah. So
You should have that presentation and approval of claims before the pledge.
Where do you want that?
Should be
I
after
had
the
something
pledge.
come up. I was hoping you guys might have a few minutes for me.
sure. Come on up.
Okay, if you need me, just make sure
Sure. Thanks.
or have someone.
Yeah, we got rid of one of our cars because it was kind of on its last leg, and we were advised that we needed to get rid of it by the guys at the shop. They thought it was just mechanically not very good, and also it had a really low ground clearance, so it wasn't really good for some of the terrain that we have to drive on. But I was kind of concerned about the fact that in the summertime we're out in the field a lot, and we're down to our Jeep and then the Classic and the Escape. And this summer I was hoping to hire a temp to help us with relist, because we have a lot of extra property to relist this summer. Because I guess Jim hired some temps a few years back, and they did extra relist, and you have to reinspect. Relist is reinspection. You have to reinspect property once every 6 years, and so now this year we have extra property that we have to reinspect because the 6-year mark is up. And so if somebody goes to a class, Belinda's out doing sales, and our data collector's out doing his work, then that might leave us short on a car. I didn't really budget for a car, but this one came up on, Michelle sent it out today from Surplus. It's a Chevy Impala that the state has on their surplus list, and it looked kind of intriguing, and I thought maybe I would at least go look at it. It only has 41,000 miles on it, and it looks like it might be a pretty good little car. It doesn't have any exterior damage or interior damage. It's a 2012 Chevy Impala, $10,500.
How much?
$10,500. I thought maybe if I used the money that we got from our last car, which I thought was $2,600, but Wes just said it was $1,600, so I'm not sure.
That's the one you just got rid of.
Yeah. And just whatever I can squeeze out of my last year's budget and this year's budget, I think I could swing it. $10,500 for a car that looks like it would be a good data collector car. It's I have a picture. You guys want to look at it? I don't know if you guys got this information.
I saw it this morning.
Yeah. I thought I could try to swing over there and look at it and see if it had any oil spots under it, see if it sounded like it was mechanically sound and drive
That's
it.
probably fairly low to the ground.
I looked up ground clearance on that type of car and tried to compare it to what it was on the Ford Focus. That looked like more of typical ground clearance for vehicles, 7.1 inches. It has bigger tires.
So your main purpose of this car is for like a 3-month period, summertime? Or?
Mostly. I mean, we're always out in December and January because we have to do new construction then.
Right.
So we have 2 people out a lot in December and January. But in the summertime, we often have 3 people out, and then we have our trips to classes. You know.
So you could lease a car for the summer, but it still cost you $20 a day. Probably.
Yeah, it might get kind of pricey.
I don't know. I think we'll have to discuss that amongst ourselves before we.
Okay.
Don't you think?
Good.
Or,
Well, if there's a need and there's budget,
Yeah, we've always had, since I've been here and before, we've always had 4 vehicles because the Escape is one that's used often by other departments, and it's usually used for going to classes, going to conferences, more of the longer trips. But with being down to 3 vehicles, the Escape will get used more on daily.
the thing is, if she goes looks at it, don't these things go pretty fast?
If they're a good car.
I thought we put the Escape back to her, and like I say, you did have a class, and that's what the new county car could be used for.
Well, that's true. That is
I'm
true.
afraid.
That is true.
I'm afraid
That's a
we
good
get a lot of vehicles.
that's where I was kind of.
I mean, I don't know what it costs to go to Enterprise and say I want a car from May 1st to September 1st.
Well, I mean, he makes a point about if there is another car to take to classes and stuff, it might not be as big of a deal. But like I said, Belinda, our data collector, both of them are out in the field all the time in the summer. And then, yeah, I think I didn't really think about that.
It might be cheaper also to pay per diem per mile.
There is that option too.
If somebody's willing to do it, I mean, especially if an older vehicle where they don't care if they're on country roads, somebody that has a nice car maybe wouldn't want to do it for.
I think you're talking basically in town. Majority probably, aren't we?
You can be anywhere.
If you do 100 miles a day, that's
it could be anywhere in the whole county.
$53.
A lot of them may not be very many miles.
That's right.
They could be, just blocks, but, they have to have a vehicle there. And, they're just doing short runs, so it wouldn't be much of a.
Yeah, most of our 9,600 parcels are in the city of Atchison. I mean, that's where the biggest share of them are. But, we do have parcels all over the county, of course. But yeah,
I'm torn to myself, but
I don't have real strong feelings about it. I just thought it looked like a good deal.
It don't sound like a bad buy. But are we going to be vehicle poor? As my dad would put it. That's basically we've got the same number of vehicles now. They're just going to be. It might look different because now they're not really all under your control. That vehicle could be access to. The new one could be if there's nobody using it, couldn't it? I mean, for her.
Yeah, I mean, this could be a travel car. It looks like it's in pretty good shape. I'd have to have somebody that knows about cars look at it to see if they thought it was a good mechanically sound car that could be used on trips. But
Well, if it's a good car, I'll bet you it's not there right now.
I just got the car information today. When did you get it? Today?
It's today, but there's a lot of times that, I mean, there was another vehicle that went out and somebody called on it, and within hours it was already
Oh, really?
spoken for. Yeah. Kansas surplus. Sometimes it's there for months. It seems like other times it goes pretty fast.
Well, I mean, if this one isn't there, what we come up with here, if we kind of know it can be thought of
And that would
anyway.
even work better for me if you guys would want to buy it out of the Kennewick County General Fund.
Sure, no
That'd
problem.
be great. That'd be great. I'll just leave this paperwork with you guys and you can talk about it.
Okay.
Well, it'd be nice to know if we agreed with you. That way, if something comes up, you would be able to react.
Mm-hmm.
But, you're right. If it is a really good car, it could go quick and could be gone by now. I didn't call on it. I just got it and I thought it looked intriguing. It looked like a good car.
Right now, you're sitting on how many vehicles?
3.
Plus,
With the access to the Traverse.
Ford, that's where we've been for a long time before. But there may be times when somebody else has got that Ford car. So.
It's in, by the way. Did you know that the Traverse is? I didn't know it. I was just informed at noon, so it's here.
The calendar in the clerk's office for those who want to reserve the car. That way you know if it's
We
going
have
to be
to
free or
take
not.
our escape in to get 2 recalls fixed on Thursday. We have to leave it Thursday. We have to leave it for Thursday. So maybe we can take the Traverse to go drop it off. Test it out. All right.
All right.
Think
We'll talk it
about guys
over.
or talk it over, whatever. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll give you my opinion right now. I think with the addition of the county general use car, 3 cars plus that's adequate for her department.
And I would wonder what it would cost. Maybe someone should check with Enterprise or somebody. What would it cost to rent a car for a week or 2 weeks or a month?
I think it'd be too expensive.
Oh, I think they're pretty. Once you get away from the airport, because that airport tax is like $20 a day. I think you rent those cars pretty cheap. I don't know whether one of the local dealers. We only have one local dealer. I think. Does that or not? The interesting thing to find out.
Okay. I guess where I come down is with the addition of the Traverse. I think that car that she proposed was maybe a good buy for the money, but I just think we might be getting vehicle poor. So, but we can still consider it, and if there's another vehicle comes up, we can consider it at a
They
later
come
time.
up every month.
Well,
Later on, we're a long ways from summer, so we could.
yeah, we're also at, well, I don't know if she has any budget left over, but that's not the reason to be buying, just because. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Seth was up this morning and presented a PO for the Road and Bridge Department to repair one Volvo grader, axle seal replacement on the final drive. Vendor is GW Van Keppel in the amount of $7,743.20.
I would make a motion to that purchase.
That is, I'll second it, but we need to clarify that is for the second side. So
Yes,
one side, so we'll be spending 14 something.
yes, total, but this is
We
the
didn't
second.
approve the first one. Yeah,
Yes.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Pass 3-0. Seth also presented us with the agreement between us and the state of Kansas for the fund exchange. Basically, they reimburse us at the rate of 75 cents on bills that follow their criteria. They call it the fund exchange. So he was wanting us to sign off on that. Do I hear a motion to sign off on the fund exchange?
I make a motion to sign off this fund exchange supplemental agreement.
I'll second that, but I'd like to have a little bit more information. But I'll second that.
Okay, well then we'll do discussion now. What was you want? This is your allocation that we've done with the state.
They pay 75% of what? On what?
Bills that fall in specific criteria. I don't know if it says it right here.
You know what the criteria is?
I do not.
The Secretary has authorized a volunteer federal fund exchange program under which local units of government may exchange some or all of the federal funds, federal, not state, allotted by Kansas Department of Transportation to the local unit in a specific federal fiscal year for the state funds allocated to the Secretary. I know in the past, certain things that they allowed that are no longer allowed is if you didn't have, maybe you could bank your funds if you didn't want to take them this year, you could allow the state to hold on to them and then take out a bigger payment in future years. That's no longer allowed. And then they lowered the rate which they reimburse. Seth was here this morning. It doesn't specify exactly, but that's always something that we've signed off on before. You want to?
It's been moved a second. We can go like we've had in the past, but I without knowing all the details, I mean, are we committing to something that we don't see? You know, yeah, we want 75% back, but are we committing to anything?
No, I don't think this is anything that's changed other than although we're not getting as much as we used to. It's just pretty much a generic year-to-year thing we participated in for, gosh, I don't know how long.
Well, he recommended it, so
Okay.
and second it. Go ahead and vote on
Okay, moved and second. All in favor say aye.
it. Aye.
All opposed? Pass 3-0. We each need to sign 2 copies. Hey.
2017-4.
Is this for Michelle?
Yes. Oh, here's the guidelines, which is a lot of.
I may take this one if I'm not read it.
Yes.
Is it too late to complain about the cold weather?
No.
No. Come on in.
No, just satisfying the appraiser with the letter I had to bring in. Boy, this looks like a good meeting.
It is.
Yeah.
It
This
is.
is the kind you like, isn't it? What are you guys up to?
Every meeting is a good meeting.
Trying to solve the problem with the outside weather.
Just will shut the lights off, go home. That's not gonna happen.
Yeah,
How you doing, Counselor?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Yes, well, that's real good. That's good.
I may have a question for you. You as a former city commissioner. When we have a city county meeting, they accept the minutes. We see some discrepancies, so we can make those changes, then accept them.
Well, why wouldn't you? Now, you didn't accept them, did you?
No.
Okay, well, I think both parties have to accept the meeting, wouldn't they, Counselor?
I think they can have I think they can have separate minutes that don't agree with one another necessarily.
Well, did one clerk take it? If one clerk took it, I would think the responsibility, if you had two different clerks taking different minutes, they would quote things different. But if one clerk took it, I wouldn't know why it wouldn't be binding, would you?
Well, I think it has to be approved by the commission, by each of the commissions.
Both commissions, right,
Yes.
right.
Yeah, they could be but one set approved by both, but there could also, if they weren't in agreement, you could have two separate sets of minutes, each approved by their own
Well, I
entity.
think you'd have to approve, and they'd have to approve minutes as written or minutes not written, you know.
You probably need to get a hold of it. It's
Wouldn't you
real
think?
minute, but I know I'm 100% right.
I mean, it's a,
I'll look at it. If nothing else, I'll
Hey,
just
I-
write it. And then,
I'm not binding you or. You don't quote me on that now.
Well, you're on camera now.
now. How's all your cows getting on, Cole?
Cold. They're cold. I'm bedding them down with hay.
You don't bring them inside. You have
Matt
to
told me
bring
that some of his got pneumonia, a couple of them, and a virus in the stomach or something. Didn't lose them.
I just had a call from them. I'm supposed to call them back, so I don't know what that's about.
Oh, Matt?
Yeah.
Oh, he told me yesterday some of his got caught sick.
Yeah.
It's tough on him, isn't it? Oh, boy. Yeah, we only had 8 cows when I was a kid. You know, but it was small. All right. Good to
Take
see
care,
you guys.
Larry.
Thanks for
Take care.
stopping in. Okay, the next thing up for consideration, we got a PO for to pay K.S.A, and this is the yearly premium.
Correct.
The amount of $139,540. 2018 annual property and liability premium contribution. Would you like to see any of this?
I already saw it.
I brought this up before. After looking through that book, I had feared that we were underinsured. But after looking through some of those figures, I think we are way over.
Well, we're insured for replacement value. And old buildings, that's always a challenge. Now, that may be the only option. I don't know if there's an option.
And then you've got a building that's a historic building. You know, how do you value replacement value on something like this?
Right.
You know, that's
How
where
do they replace it?
the last page on there, it kind of is, I think, the breakdown of
It has
everything
the,
that's-
What
The
was it
premiums.
last year? Did it say what it was last year?
no, it just doesn't have last year's on here. But oh, well, 2018 annual. No, that's this year. We had the credit
Should
of
be more.
$12,560.
Should be more because we had additional building.
I think last year it was 144,000, but don't quote me, for 2017. But this year it does look like it went up, but we also did receive the $12,000 one-time contribution credit
Because we
for
signed
the
a 3-year.
3-year stabilization rate.
Okay, here's the list of
That includes vehicle insurance, so to say, the property, building. They have like the surety bonds that they, the bonding for the officers, elected officials. A lot of that is included with that premium.
So did we have like any reduction, like when now we no longer have a caretaker at the lake? would that be something that there's nobody living in that house, would that lower anything? Has that been reported to them?
No, because this winter supposedly it's supposed to be getting torn out. So
Well, even the fact that we no longer
but the
have
value of that wouldn't affect this much.
No, but I was thinking more of just having that. Those, yeah.
The actual people out there, I don't believe so, because I don't think that they would have to be bonded to have that position.
Or just something that's different. That I wondered if
Right.
that would have anything.
Right.
They like to have all of that stuff reported, whether it really makes much difference on the premium or not. But
Correct.
just to keep up current. So, do I have any more questions on this or comments? So do I hear a motion to pay K.Camp the $139,540?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second, Mr.
It's
Chairman.
been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Passed 3-0.
Just one. There's no date on it.
Why you sign it? I'd rather not sign this one.
That one there,
A lot of them.
I'd
I'd like to understand more about replacement value versus.
That'd be a good topic in the near future to kind of look at those values, because that's been quite a while ago. We had that booklet of that. When does that come out? Like for the next year?
I think we asked for an audit or an update or something. That's when they provide us that. Well, that meeting we was at Wichita, that speaker he was from a different. I think most counties were underinsured, so we got to thinking, we need to check, make sure that we're insured properly. But then after seeing that booklet, I think we're overinsured.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda would be, Pat, this would be under you, the signing off on the tax liens, the resolution.
Before, part of the process of filing a tax sale case is that you all have to authorize it. And so the resolution that I prepared is your authorization to file the next tax sale proceeding. We're prepared, I think, to file it on Friday. We have to do the calculations of the amount due, and we calculate it into Friday the 19th. And so I would ask that you adopt that resolution to authorize the
Did we ever get anything back from the city to what their, I believe those mowing fees, so we can announce that the day of the sale?
We didn't get anything back from them. There's been a lot of discussion about it. What the directions that I read to people on the day of the sale cover that. After some discussion with Roger and some thought about it, I think I'm probably going to make it more explicit. The other thing that we could do that we have not done is to ask the city in writing to give us a list of all of the special assessments that have not yet been certified to the county clerk.
The outstanding ones that haven't been submitted.
That have not been submitted yet. Right? But we do cover in there that they're, unless they were of record prior to the date of the judgment, that they're not discharged in the tax sale.
Now, I understand the city did refund the people. We signed off on the refunds. And last year there was probably half a dozen of them.
Okay, shall I read this is resolution number 2018-1432, A resolution by the Board of County Commissioners of Atchison County, Kansas concerning judicial foreclosure and sale of real estate tax liens. Whereas K.S.A. 79-1801, how do you do that? K.S.A. Is that correct? Sets forth the procedure by which a county must levy real property taxes, and K.S.A. 79-2001 et sec. Controls the collections of said taxes, and whereas pursuant to K.S.A. 79-2301 et sec. If property taxes are not timely paid and proper notice has been provided, the county will acquire the real property for which taxes are unpaid in a delinquent tax sale for the amount of the taxes owed, and whereas numerous parcels of real estate have been sold and bid by the county at delinquent tax sales and have remained unredeemed on the first day of September of the second or third year after such sale, and whereas the aggregate assessed value of all such real estate subject to sale in the boundaries of Atchison County, Kansas is more than $10,000, and whereas the legislature has passed laws providing for the foreclosure of tax liens and the sale of and the sale of real property in order to assist in the collection of delinquent taxes. Now, therefore, be it resolved as follows, that judicial foreclosure and sale of such liens shall be conducted, and 2, the County Councilor of Atchison County, Kansas is hereby authorized and directed to prepare the necessary petition or petitions in order to effectuate judicial foreclosure of any real property which has been sold to the county for taxes and which has remained unredeemed as provided for in K.S.A. 79-2801, adopted by the Board of County Commissioners of Atchison County, Kansas, the 16th day of January 2018. Do I hear a motion to accept?
That's a movie.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I presume when we have these tax sales, there's been title search down that there's no mortgages on these places.
Well, there are mortgages on some of the properties, but part of the tax sales, we have to give notice to the mortgage holder. And that's why we have the abstracting done. And you've paid tens of thousands of dollars in abstracting for the sale.
2 copies of the same. Oh, is there 3 of them?
I think one was in your packet. That's the one that was in your packet.
So you just need 2? Do you want these or just put them in here?
You can put them in, that's fine.
Okay. We signed off on all of the employee payroll status forms, which we approved last week. And the payroll.
This little part of it, figured that you can get it all done today.
This is for 2017.
Correct.
Do you wish to review any of these? No?
Somebody should.
I'll probably go through them after we close. And Pat goes through them too, don't you? Is the minimum maintenance meeting next week? Is that the yes? Okay. So I haven't heard anything more about it. And there was some good information in here. Did you dig that up? That's in here on the minimum maintenance roads.
That information?
Yeah.
That information would have come from
And those are the things that I printed for Commissioner Ford at the last meeting.
Okay. I hadn't seen them until then. Okay, county councilor updates.
Well, we already talked a little bit about the tax sale, and we're expecting to file it this week. I did this week review the contract that the architect had prepared for the door replacement project, and so I expect that will probably be signed this week. And it appears okay. There were a couple of questions I have that I think were nothing that's going to hold anything up.
Didn't that contract state that they want to start within 45 days? It's been a month or better.
I believe it was 60.
60 days.
It had a 120-day completion, but the time started ticking December 27th, I think. So I think it was April 25th was completion, or something.
We don't want to do it today.
Yeah, I believe the 45-day was the jail room. That was the contract that we signed ahead to 45 days. Anything more?
Well, I think, do you want to have an executive session for an attorney-client matter?
Yes.
And I think half an hour would be more than enough.
Who wants to read?
You could go shorter than that, I suppose, if you wanted to.
Well, I move the Board of County Commissioners recess to executive session at 2:10 p.m. The consultation with an attorney for the public body which is deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship is allowed by K.S.A. 75-431B, parentheses B2, and for the purpose of the closed session is protect confidentiality of this discussion, and that the board come out of executive session at 2:40 p.m. in the Commission Room, First Floor Courthouse. Those present will be Jack Bauer, Eric Knoll, Chairman, Bill Pohl, and Pat Henderson.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to go in executive session. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Pass 3-0.
No.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move we go back into open session at 2:40.
Second.
2:41.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed 3-0. I don't know what this is for.
Check.
Check. It's better than a bill. Michelle, maybe she's.
I can look at it. It was addressed to you. You may be able to.
It's a big one.
I think it may be a court related thing.
$85.
Yeah.
Oh, was that on the bankruptcy? There was a bankruptcy that was filed in another state, in federal court, yeah. Yeah, right. And we looked into it about filing the claim and discovered that there wasn't any tax that was owed here. The attorney for the debtors filed a claim on behalf of the county, which they're allowed to do. And so it's been ordered by a federal court that you receive this. They contended to, our records showed that we weren't owed. I think it has to do with personal property tax on property that was removed from the county. And so we. Oh, you were handling the personal property part.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Star bonds.
So yeah, I think it's just it's yours. You can cash it. I think if you wanted to discuss the specifics of it, you probably ought to go into executive session to protect the privacy, financial privacy of the debtor in that case.
Okay, we just received 2 copies of the Star Bond project ordinance from the city, just for county. Michelle, do you take care of that?
I have copies of mine. I got 2 copies as well.
These are the
Well, now you have 4.
Mhm.
Okay, now we have the bills for 2018 bills. Anybody want to look through them?
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a recommendation that next week we look at the hard copy of how other counties start their budget, because we're 3/4 through January, and I believe I recall that they were starting in January for their budget, and I don't want that time to go.
I sent an email to Michelle and Jamie about getting together either last week or this week to discuss that, to make a presentation to the commissioners on the 31st. I have not heard back from either one of them, other than I had a verbal conversation with Michelle today.
Yeah,
So I don't know whether
we don't want that time, because we just a mad rush there for a month getting it done, when it would be so much easier to start off, do it in stages.
Well, I think one of the main things, takeaways from last year, was the tax lid stuff that we were starting from scratch. Didn't know how that was going to affect us. Anticipation. Yeah, everything was being put off until we finally figured out the nuts and bolts. So that should go much smoother as far as that
And
part of it.
after attending the one meeting where we had everybody here and how they was willing to give and take, I think we need to go
I
through
think
that.
you need to start with a group of people here. I think we also need to start with benchmark. I also think people should be scheduled when they present their budget, so we're not wondering who's going to show up this week. And I think the elected officials, if they want to discuss salaries against benchmark, should come to present their own budgets. I guess that'd be at their discretion, but that's what we would discuss, salaries and benchmarking.
My second thing was, are we going to go forward on the strategic planning and have that included in that, I forget what it's called, employee evaluation?
I think they're 2 different things, but I think we can start the little strategic planning by when you get everybody together with a budget, talk about what are the things that are important to the county this year. Whether it be good government, better roads, whatever those things might be, and then how does our budget apply to that? And I had sent Jamie a pretty good example of a benchmarking that was done, benchmarking by category against other. This was actually cities, but it could turn into counties. So you could review mill levy versus counties, those type of things against different county organizations. So you're looking at some raw numbers right to begin with. So you're not just taking it, off the cuff. I mean, these are the wages for elected officials in like counties. These are the wages for department heads in those counties. These are their budgets as a percent of total. You kind of take a look at those and say, are we wrong? Are we right? Are we about average? That's where you kind of start your budget.
I would also like to, that's a start, but who's to say that a peer-sized county that particular department head is doing a very, very good job or has more employees? So I think you got to have
Well, that's
performance.
Well, if you got a benchmark against 8 or 9 counties, and you could take a look at it, yeah, there's going to be some people that make a difference.
Yeah, you can just look at wage, same size, pure size county, but there's so many other things that enter into it. How many employees do they have under them? Do they have the same programs or the same staff?
What do they do to better their department?
Yeah, what's their total budget for that? Maybe their total budget for that department's double than ours. So their wage might reflect abundance of money that was allocated to that, So there's so many more things that really with the information have to be dug for. That's just not something that's going to be available. Maybe some phone calls and stuff, to actually find another county or an example of somebody who can actually compare apples to apples.
See, my vision was, that's why I asked you if I could do that, was to come to the commission with at least a template of what it could look like.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that would be what we do, it'd be what everybody thinks we should follow. And because we should be, maybe what happens in February and March is no more than information gathering by department heads and elected officials.
Mm-hmm.
But when we start, we already have that information.
Yeah.
So we're not scrambling. We're not scrambling. The actual budget process may not start till middle of March or the 1st of April, but there's still an expectation of what needs to be gathered in the meantime.
Something that I brought up quite a while ago, and it was something I had seen, and Jamie and Seth and I went to a budget prep class in Emporia, and any future major projects or that you look at 5 years, that, okay, in 5 years we need a whole new computer system, or we need that patrol or an ambulance, and so they get that when they know that say in 4 years they need this, that needs to be put into the budget paperwork, and so we can maybe have a graph over here saying that, we need to look at these upcoming things and get ready, and maybe if on year 3 out we realize we've got 4 different things that we need an ambulance, we need a grader, we need this and that, we can actually look and say we need to advance one a year and put one off a year, and kind of for that strategic planning, but to actually do it on major purchases. And I actually have some forms that we had gotten there that would work for that.
I tell you something else I think we should do. When we get a budget and they don't have this particular vehicle in the budget, and let's say they don't do as quite as much, whether it be road and bridge, and at the end of the year they got extra money and they're wanting to buy something. If it wasn't in the original budget, we should decline it.
Yeah, I agree with you. The hard and fast rules are always difficult because there may be something might make sense. But I agree with you, Bill. But there's always an exception to everything. But you have to really understand why it would be.
Okay, do we have anything else?
I move to adjourn.
Second that?
351.
Did we do the resolution?
Sales tax resolution, yes.
Okay.
We did that, didn't we?
I move to adjourn at 2:51.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Now I hear